Sir, listen. You just gave it 4 years. Well, guess what?
Sir, don't say something.
Get ready to witness the unbelievable moments when convicts completely lost their cool in court and went wild with anger. Number 1. Ricky Hand. Ricky Hand was sentenced to 40 years in prison following the charges of aggravated robbery, attempted safecracking, abduction, and breaking and entering. But despite being guilty of all charges, Ricky Hand appeared shocked when the judge handed him the sentence he deserved. He couldn't help but ask the judge if he had heard him correctly. But once he was sure he was going in for 40 years, his reaction caught everyone in the courtroom off guard. Ricky Hand had been on a robbery spree for many years, but he always got lucky and succeeded in evading the police. However, things went haywire the night he tried to rob John's drive-thru in Springfield, Ohio. The store's footage shows Ricky making his way to the door just as the owner was getting ready to close shop. What Ricky never expected was the owner waiting for him on the other side, loaded and ready to shoot. As Ricky tried to sneak into the store, the owner shot several fires and terrified the robber, who immediately fled. The owner then called 911 and informed the police of the attempted robbery. He also told them about the shots he fired, as he was certain the suspect was injured.
911 emergency.
Yeah, this is John's drive-thru, West Main Street. A guy just tried to rob me and I shot him. He ran out the back door.
Okay, is he injured?
I think I hit him.
The owner's speculation was on point, as Ricky admitted himself to a nearby hospital 2 days later to treat bullet wounds. Since the police were already looking for a suspicious man injured by gunshots, it didn't take them long to piece together the puzzle. Ricky was apprehended at the hospital, and he confessed to the attempted robbery and the fact that the owner shot him 3 times. This is the footage from his courtroom appearance, where the judge sentenced him to 40 years behind bars. For someone accustomed to breaking the law, Ricky's reaction in court seemed grossly miscalculated. Or was it? As soon as the judge handed out his sentence, Ricky looked appalled and even shocked. However, what he did next wasn't spontaneous, but a premeditated act of revenge. He reached into his arm sling and pulled out pill bottles with his feces and urine that he had kept hidden throughout the proceedings. Within seconds, he threw the filth at his defense lawyer, who got a taste of some foul-smelling justice. Unfortunately, his antics worsened his situation and earned him 5 additional charges. If you thought Ricky's outburst was out of the ordinary, wait until you see how the next convict created unforgettable scenes of chaos in the courtroom. Number 2. Manson Bryant. Manson Bryant had been in and out of courts and prison on several accounts, making him a regular since his juvenile days. From cases ranging from robbery to abduction, Bryant found himself in Judge Lucci's courtroom too many times than he could count. Would you believe that at least 8 of his cases ended up on Judge Lucci's desk? No wonder he had a good idea of how Bryant would react to his latest sentence. The judge found him guilty in Count 1 aggravated burglary felony 1, guilty in Count 2 aggravated burglary felony 1, guilty in Count 3 aggravated robbery felony 1, guilty in Count 4 felony 1, guilty in Count 5 abduction felony 3, and so on. That's quite a rap sheet, wouldn't you agree? When Bryant's day of reckoning finally arrived, he appeared in court looking remorseful and respectful of the court's decision regarding his fate. However, his facade quickly and completely dissipated when the judge announced his sentence. Judge Lucci sentenced him to 22 years in prison, and that's when Bryant lost his composure.
That you have or will have the ability to pay restitution.
Bryant's profanity-filled rant shocked everyone in the courtroom as he hurled one insult after another at the judge, accusing him of racism and disrespecting his status as a judge. When Bryant initially displayed remorse in front of the judge, he was inclined to consider his statement and show some flexibility in his punishment. But as he saw Bryant take a 360-degree turn, the judge was forced to reconsider his stance. Watch how the judge tries to get his words out between Bryant's never-ending tirades.
Well, it was clear that the remorse that he was trying to portray was phony, and that he wasn't remorseful at all, and that if given the chance, if I let him loose on society, he's going to prey on other people.
Bryant's outburst earned him another 6 years behind bars, but that didn't stop him from shouting insults as the deputies escorted him out of the courtroom. Manson Bryant wasn't the only one who thought he deserved a lesser sentence. The next convict's reaction not only upset the court, but caused significant emotional trauma to the victim's family. Number 3. Shondell Jackson. This is Shondell Jackson, a 19-year-old who attempted to rob Nathan Potter, a 21-year-old student at the University of Wisconsin. As fate would have it, Potter didn't have any cash on him the day he encountered Jackson. But instead of walking away from the scene, Jackson shot Potter in an act of unprovoked violence. Potter's family couldn't believe how unexpectedly their son's young life was cut short, and they fought a valiant fight for justice with the legal system. Throughout the trial, Jackson showed no remorse for his actions, and was even caught smirking at Potter's family. As you can imagine, Jackson's behavior caused the victim's family unbearable pain, which was evident from the moving victim impact statement Potter's father delivered in court.
Nothing that can be said to bring back our Nathan. But your sentence can ensure that Shondell does not have the opportunity as a free man to inflict pain like this again.
Potter's family requested the court to give Jackson the maximum sentence, and he was eventually convicted of first-degree intentional homicide in a robbery. Anyone could have expected what was coming for him. But do you think Jackson was ready to face the music? This is the scene from his sentencing, where Jackson drops all pretenses and expresses his anger at the court. As the judge sentenced him to life in prison with no chance of parole, Jackson lost control and reacted like a wild animal trying to set itself free. As the court officers tried to restrain the agitated convict, he continued hurling curses at the judge. But things took a nasty turn when the court officers had to use force to subdue Jackson's outburst, even resorting to pepper spray to bring him under control. Jackson's irrational behavior was mirrored by his family, who was sitting in the audience and could be seen shouting at Potter's family. And they were shaken at how conveniently Jackson's family blamed them for his sentence.
There is some redemption for him at some point, but that's totally up to him. And for his family to say to us, "We hate you," what's that all about? We didn't do a thing to him.
Jackson's violent reaction was uncalled for, but expected. But the next convict surprised everyone, including his own family, when the judge struck the hammer. Number 4. Dexter Johnson. Dexter Johnson's life took a fateful turn when he carjacked Maria and her boyfriend in 2006, along with 4 other transgressors. The gang helped the couple at gunpoint, stole their belongings, and drove them around Houston, inflicting the most obscene acts of torture and humiliation. After driving them around for hours, Johnson and his friends subjected Maria to sexual assault, but their nightmare didn't end there. The unruly gang shot Maria and her boyfriend and left them in the woods, only to be discovered 5 days later. This heinous crime cost Johnson his freedom as the authorities apprehended him on account of double murders. Although he didn't contest his involvement in the crime, he was persistent in his defense, claiming he was not the one who shot them. Do you think he was telling the truth? During the trial, Johnson maintained his cool, never once showing any emotions that could work against his case. But when the judge finally announced his decision, all the pent-up frustration inside Johnson rushed to the surface, leaving everyone in the courtroom stunned. We can see from the footage that Johnson slumped into his chair when the judge gave him the death penalty. Tears rolled down his eyes as he looked at his family sitting in the audience. But more than anything, he seemed stunned into silence. He couldn't believe what the judge had said and seemed unsure of his next line of action. However, as the death sentence registered in his mind, he unleashed his fury on the spectators, hurling a chair across the room. In a matter of seconds, the courtroom became an emotional battlefield, where on one end, Johnson was furious at his fate, cursing the judge, and on the other, his family was wailing, overcome with grief and begging for mercy. 2 of Johnson's family members collapsed, requiring immediate medical attention. In the same room, Maria's parents looked relieved and satisfied with the verdict, as Johnson was the reason their precious daughter's life was wasted. Needless to say, Johnson's case was an emotional rollercoaster driven by his mother, who defended her son ferociously, placing her trust in divine intervention, and the victim's parents, who fought hard to seek justice for their daughter. Amidst all this chaos was Johnson, who understood the gravity of his crime, but was powerless to evade the deadly conviction heading straight at him. The next convict will make Johnson look like the lesser of 2 evils. Are you ready for another gut-wrenching story? Number 5. Eric Penland. This is Eric Penland, who is facing child endangerment charges in Ohio. Penland was convicted of violently shaking a child and causing permanent disabilities. His victim was none other than his 3-month-old infant, whom he shook so violently that the boy is now blind and permanently disabled.
Eric Penland was charged with shaking his then-infant son so violently 2 years ago, the boy is now blind and permanently disabled. I was there as the verdict was read in a courtroom full of emotion.
The child was taken in by a pair of loving foster parents who are dedicated to caring for disabled and abused children. The foster parents formally adopted the now 2-year-old boy a few weeks before the sentencing. The prosecution explained to the judge how Eric had ruined the boy's life and subjected him to a fate of dependency and disability. The child's foster mother passionately expressed the unimaginable pain the couple endured while caring for the disabled child. Nothing prepared us for the screaming, hours and hours of screaming. The child's condition proved the devastating effects of Penland's actions. But the man himself wasn't moved by anything that transpired during his trial. Instead, he remained unemotional, insisting he was innocent and wrongfully convicted. When the judge sentenced him to 11 years in prison, he finally showed some emotions, but they weren't what you'd expect.
I've been falsely accused. I've been wrongfully convicted.
Judge Anthony D'Onofrio told Penland the jury disagreed and found him guilty. After being sentenced to 11 years, the defendant bowed and shook his head before letting out one final outburst.
Man. I didn't do anything wrong, man.
How do you think Penland reacted? If you thought these outbursts in court were shocking, these unbelievable courtroom moments were leaving your mind reeling.